Sean Martin, you have just been newly elected president of the Irish Postmasters Union, the IPU. Are you a bit mad?
I don't think so. I think the post office is hugely important in people's day-to-day lives.
Absolutely.
I think we have a huge service to offer local communities, and I think the post office plays a huge role in ensuring local communities stay alive and vibrant.
Tell me briefly, and tell our listeners, how many post offices are there still alive in Ireland?
We've over 900 post offices, about 950 in total if you take in the company-run post offices. Hugely important, as I said, in both towns and in rural areas. They provide huge economic and social aspects for people. More importantly, economic, because the money that's handed out locally is actually spent locally. That sustains and creates employment locally. And that's a huge, important social cohesion, particularly in relation to where communities now are beginning to disintegrate.
We've done different pieces on the programme here. I was out in Dunhill recently, out in Bunman and different places, and the importance of the local post office, one, and then the local postman or woman delivering the post, and changes that the company is bringing in. For example, there could be certain devices, GPS trackers on the vans that mean that the postman or woman can't stop for the chat that they used to have as much as they would have liked. There's a lot of changes that the company is bringing in and trying to change. Are you changing with the times? Have you been able to change with the times?
Yeah, I think we are. And I suppose the important thing to realise is that the post office, if it's just about economics, it won't survive. I think the post office delivers an awful lot more than just economics. If it's about pounds, shillings and pence, we can forget about it. Because the government now are more interested in trying to ensure that everything adds up. And I think there has to be a cost in delivering local services to local people. And we talk about, the government continually talk about carbon footprint, but yet they make services longer and longer accessible for people. And that doesn't make sense. Has the post office changed? Yes, it has. We understand that we need to become relevant, and we need to stay relevant, and we need to become more relevant. And in that, we've enhanced the number of products and services that we've offered. We're now in current accounts. We now do foreign exchange. We do a huge amount of mail services. We do life insurance, travel insurance, house insurance, car insurance. So there's a huge product offering from the post office network. And it's important that the public begin to use it and that they come in feeling welcome, because we welcome every customer in the door. Another important aspect of understanding it is the postmaster isn't paid a salary. He's not employed by the state. He depends on transactions in his door. He's a self-employed individual. If the transactions don't come in, he doesn't get paid, and therefore he becomes less viable.
Are you in a difficult position that you have to represent your members, like a trade union? That's effectively what it is, and it is the Postmasters Union. And you have to deal with the company wanting to instigate change, and then you have to deal as a representative with your members that some may be opposed to change, and others then may not just be able to change. So, for example, certain age bracket of postmasters, male and female, they might say, all these things, all these electronic stuff that you're talking about bringing in, we just can't do it. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, look, I think change is difficult for everyone, and we understand as postmasters that we need to change. We need to become more relevant, and yes, it is difficult for some people, and that's why this year, along with An Post and to a certain extent in relation to the government, we decided that in some areas we needed to be able to consolidate. And consolidate, I mean, we needed to be able to close post offices where that business transferred to other post offices and made them more relevant and more vibrant.
I was out at the day the post office closed in Clonmead, and we just had a text in from somebody. Damien, if the post offices are so vital to our community, why are they closing them all? We lost our village post office. It's very hard for the elderly of the parish. You've had to be involved in negotiations effectively regarding the closure of some post offices. That must be really difficult for you.
It's hugely difficult for us, but the reason why we ended up having to consolidate some post offices is because of the lack of a government commitment. The government policy was to maintain the network of post offices in their last programme for government, and unfortunately they haven't delivered on their side of the bargain, because we have been asking for more government services to be delivered through post office, and there's a number of services that we can do in relation to motor tax, driving licences, form generation and form completion, which can save the taxpayer huge amount of money annually, because we can generate every form that the government needs on the technology that we have. So we've fabulous technology, some of the technology we've sold all over the world. So it's there, and you'd have to ask yourself, why the government need alternative channels or want to provide more infrastructure when they already have it there? They can have the state on their doorstep if they want.
Out in Passage East, the post office closed. We were there as well when that closed, and they were looking at maybe putting in a post office up in Crook, just up the hill. But because the costs associated with that, because obviously you've got to have security measures and all that, is there any way that the government could grant aid retailers that if there was going to be a post office in their shop or in their area, that it might be facilitated?
Yeah, I think they can. I think it is getting to the stage where if we want to deliver the service, if the government want to deliver it, and they say they do, they say they're an important economic infrastructure in both in rural and urban Ireland, I think if they want to do that, they've got to pay for it. Like if you look at the English model, they pump billions of money over the last 10 years into the post office network. And they took social welfare away from the post office over in England, and it nearly collapsed overnight. Right. And now they're actually trying to invent the wheel again. So they're pumping money back into villages to see, can they reopen post offices? Do we want to go down that road? I hope not. I hope the government are going to be committed to the post office network, that they are going to deliver services. As I said, we're certainly disappointed that some post offices have closed. We would like to keep every post office open. We'd still like to keep the number that we have, but unfortunately, unless there is government commitment, and probably more importantly, unless the people continue to use us on a daily and weekly basis. I'm asking the customers and the people that are listening now to make just one change, whether that's, rather than getting your money paid into a bank, that you get your pension in the post office, rather than getting your bill paid in, direct debit or standing order, that you'd make one bill available and to go to your post office. Because it's hugely important, as I said, both economically and socially, for the vibrancy of rural communities. And I think if you create jobs locally, I think, you'll end up with a vibrant community.
I agree with you 100%, but in some cases, unfortunately, that's too late. So for some parts of East Waterford, for the Kilmeaden area, it's too late because the post office is closed.
No, I agree, but what I'm saying now is let's not leave more post offices closed.
Absolutely.
We understand the disappointment in relation to the customers and the communities in relation to post offices have closed. Unfortunately, it was something we had to do, because if we didn't do something, it was possible the whole network was going to collapse. We've been waiting and telling the government over the last 5, 6 and 7 years the difficulties that are facing the post office network, in relation to technology. And we understand technology, we understand people are embracing technology, but the difficulty we have is trying to ensure technology and face-to-face intertwine with each other, and that's a difficulty. But we're prepared to change. We have changed. We're now open longer hours for people. We're open during lunch hour, and we want customers to come into us. We'll meet them and greet them with a smile.
And just on that, Sean Francis, Senator, said, delighted for Sean Martin. He's a brilliant postmaster, looks after all his customers, and a gentleman. Thanks for everything.
Thanks for that, Francis.
It's lovely to hear those nice comments, and it's very rare that you get people giving out about a postmaster. Most postmasters, male and female, are really, really good people. Yeah,
I think most postmasters genuinely like the work they do, because, you don't get paid a huge amount of money. So it's not for the economics that they do it for. It's because of the fact that they like dealing with people, they like helping people, and they want to serve their communities. Like over the last 18 months, the amount of difficulty people had in relation to closing post offices, where postmasters, their heart was torn out of them. They just didn't want to close the post office because they understood that the likelihood of their community, it was going to become a sleepless town. Because once the post office closes, invariably the local businesses around it close as well.
Sean Martin, the best of luck with you.
Thank you, Damien.
Difficult job, a busy job for you. Linda has texted in, Damien, you were there when all the post offices closed. I think you could be a jinx. Okay, so better not go to any more post offices. No, Sean, the very, very best of luck to you, and we'll keep in touch.
Great. Thanks, Damien.